we move to our third panel of the day. Everyone who's listening to us, I hope the Josh is on. So let's move on. Now comes the third panel discussion, which is beautifully curated, of course, for the best of the panelists who are going to be a part of this, named as Diversity and Inclusion. Diversity and inclusion, buzzwords, right? But is that all there is, a buzz or no bang? Is it just an HR team carried over from the 80s of the previous millennia? In the Indian context, when we talk about diversity and inclusion, it is specifically related to workforce participation of women as a major demographic partner along with the men. So, to put the right perspective about diversity and inclusion and the role of women into it, we have Mr. Pavan G. Ranga, Ms. Margaret Surtman Rijnen, and Mr. Binod Rangador with us. Before handing over the deliberations, a quick introduction of our panelists and our wonderful moderator, a strong support team to mentor my board, CS Bharti Iyer. So, first I would like to introduce Mr. Pavan G. Ranga, who is the chairman of Rankson LLP, also the CEO of Rankson Aerospace. Mr. Pavan Ranga, third generation entrepreneur and director of NR Group, a diversified business group and a serial entrepreneur, an angel investor, PE and VC, what he loves to drive to success. Mr. Pavan Ranga is driving several philanthropic initiatives such as Ranga Rao Memorial School, a non-profit residential school for visually challenged girls from economically disadvantaged background, and NR Center for Community Development, a training and development center for the specially abled with the objective of integrating them into mainstream development process. We welcome you, sir, Mr. Pavan G. Ranga. Our second panelist is Margaret Rijnen. Margaret is the chairman of the executive board of Aon Holdings, part of Aon Placements, NYSE Aon, and other holding entities in the Netherlands, and global chief marketing officer of Aon Import. Ms. Margaret is also the representative of the Kingdom of the Netherlands at the G20 Empower. Margaret holds various non-executive and advisory roles. She is currently, amongst others, vice chairman of the supervisory board of international law firm Norton Duluth, member of the Global Alumni Board of Harvard Business School, member of the supervisory board of the Dutch Royal Military Museums, and also the member of the executive committee of the American Chamber of Commerce in the Netherlands. In addition, she is chair of the advisory board of SCR Topwoven, the Dutch nationwide diversity C-suite female empowerment initiative, and represents the Kingdom of the Netherlands and its private sector in the G20 Empower Alliance. We welcome you, Ms. Margaret. Third panelist is Binod Rangador. Binod Hampapur Rangador is an executive vice president and the global head of talent and technology operations and quality. Binod is responsible for various functions in Infosys. He is a trustee of the Infosys Foundation and Infosys Employee Welfare Trust. Binod has over 34 years of industry experience and has led several leadership positions at Infosys. As a responsible corporate citizen, Binod has funded the establishment of a 150-bed hospitals for Sri Sringeri Mutt. In an honorary role, he is the chairman of the board of governors of Rangador Memorial Hospital, which is named after his father, the late H.S. Rangador. Our moderator, Bharti Iyer, who will be moderating these panelists, who is, let me introduce you about Bharti as well. She is FCS AICWA Fellow of Insurance Institute of India, LLP.
I think we lost Manisha.
Yeah, I think we lost her connection. So, So let me introduce Bharti. Bharti has been a strong support to Mentor My Board, a hardcore insurance professional, at the same time, a company secretary and a cost accountant. So with 33 years of industry experience. So over to you, Bharti, for the panel discussion ahead. And I welcome all our panelists today to this Women Directors Conclave on behalf of entire team of Mentor My Board. Over to you, Bharti.
Thank you, Divya. And once again, a very warm welcome to Pawan, Margaret, and Vinod. It is actually a very, like how Manisha said, it's a buzzword, diversity and inclusion. So in one of our previous mastership programs, we were thinking terms of diversity, not only inclusion of women on board, but also different types of diversity, as in young versus old, enterprising young startups against families, and people who are technocrats as against paper pushers and pen pushers, or account number crunchers. So different types of diversities. So let's now come to the point of, because this is a women directors conclave where we are celebrating women directors, women leaders, which is not necessarily a buzzword. And as actually Margaret had introduced this very excellent concept, how do we measure? What are the metrics for measuring diversity and inclusion, and how in a board can we sustain it? A quick input from each one of y'all. We'll start with Margaret because she introduced this, and then go on to Pawan and then to Binu. How do you have the metrics, and how do you sustain it?
Thank you very much, Bharati. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. And first and foremost, I do wish to express all of my best wishes for India, your people, with the current COVID crisis. So that's most important, I think. I think it's very important to measure. I think if you take a look at the McKinsey report, which was published a few years ago, it actually calculated the uplift for the India GDP would be 770 billion if female potential would be optimized, which is a huge number for India, for the world. And so it's an important fact to measure. If you further take a look at how to measure, it's clear that also from our G20 discussions, that if you measure, you're able to actually objectively start to analyze what are the facts in the various companies, whether it's small or big companies. It's extremely important to understand, what's the demographics of the diversity in your company. And back to what you just related to, which is a very important fact, it's not only about gender diversity, although of course today we will be addressing it most prominently. I think it's also about a broader diversity. Is each and every individual today present in this conference, but also present in the world, is its value for the true value he or she brings? And last but not least, I want to point out, because I do think it's important for me to give everyone in India today this call for action. Ladies, the Netherlands last year degraded in the World Economic Forum Gender Gap Index 28 positions. You did the same this year. And there's a huge job for you to be done. The female potential would be such a good add-on to the Indian economy. And all of you can contribute by making yourself more visible, by taking up the challenge, and by moving your career forwards. And I want to remind you that, some people might have fear. Fear is a reaction. Courage is a decision. So I ask you all to take courage. And last but not least, I want to share this with you before we move on in the discussion and some facts. So there's a leadership analysis which was taken up by Volkmann and Zenger. And Volkmann and Zenger are two very prominent professors. And they, a few years ago, took up a leadership assessment and assessed the capabilities of leaders. And of more than 10,000 assessments, they identified 19 leadership capabilities. And guess what? They looked at women and men and their performance. And Maritja, it's very nice to say that women outperform men in 17 out of those 19 leadership capabilities. So ladies, you don't need to be insecure or not self-confident. We should be self-confident. We have those skills and we can do it. Back to you, Bharti.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Pawan, for your take, and then to Binod. On metrics and how do you sustain it in the board policy, D&I?
Sure. So, my perspective, put it in a very simplistic manner. Diversity, the metrics for evaluating diversity are fairly straightforward. The different demographics in any ecosystem. If you take a company, for example, the gender, the age, the educational backgrounds, religious backgrounds, racial backgrounds. In India, even sometimes caste background brings in a different kind of perspective and value. So diversity is fairly easy to measure. What is really a tough one to measure straight out is inclusion. And how effective, an inclusive strategy is being executed in a company. Now, the end output of a good inclusion strategy and execution would be things like job satisfaction, the retention, longevity of employees in a company. Generally, how aligned are people to the goal and how well the company is performing overall. But if you want to really break it down, I think employee satisfaction index, if done the right way, one of the most important, dimension to employee satisfaction is how included they feel. Every employee feels in the organization's plans, goals, strategy, and team. So I think that is a very powerful index and matrix to measure, because otherwise you can go into extremely complicated measurements like psychiatric evaluations and so on. But I think I believe that this evaluation metric and mechanism is the most realistic one to judge and evaluate inclusion. And that's my perspective. You're on mute, but
Yeah, Vinod, I would also like you to, take into account what does the board have to do to have a D&I sustainable policy. Not just because SEBI tells us that you have to have 33 and 1/3% on the board of your listed company and therefore only you can list. Not just for satisfying a checkbox, but as a vision for the board, a sustainable policy.
Okay, I hope I'm audible. See, it is important to look at it in two perspectives. I definitely agree with whatever Margaret and Pawan has said before me. But my point is that you have to divide this into two. One is to see, especially when it comes to women, you have to see how are you having equality at home, because things start at home first. Because you think about companies and organizations later. So how are you equal at home? Because that is the starting point. Now, are you treating your son different from your daughter? Those are all starting points of diversity and inclusion at home. So let's park this for a minute, because much of the audience here are all budding people who are into organizations. Now, when it comes to diversity inclusion, what is important to see is one part of it is gender. The other part of it is how can you include people from different walks of life and different nationalities. For example, if you need to be global, today, most of the companies who do successful business have to be global. If you're not global, then it doesn't really help, right? In some sense. So to be global, it is best to have somebody who is representing your different cultures to be part of your board. So one, of course, is women, which is very true. And the measure for that is very clearly the number of women in the workforce. Percentage of women in the workforce is a clear measure. Second is the percentage of women in the leadership. See, because as you go up the hierarchy, the number of dropouts or number of places where people drop off is very high. So the successful measure is where you have very high percentage of women in leadership. Now, when it comes to, there is one more measurement in some sense where you know whether it is healthy or unhealthy, is where how welcome are you to bring back women after maternity and give them adequate training and get them back into where they left off.
Totally.
That is also a very important measure. And many people may not come back. That's a different story. But when they come back, they should not feel that they missed out something. That is a very important measure. And internally, the rest of the team has to have the right kind of mindset to accept that. Today it is you, tomorrow it is somebody else. So the mindset has to accept it. In some sense, if you bring in people from different parts of the globe onto your board, then your board is truly global, and they will come with their perspectives, and you will also start think differently. Very simple example. when you have a board meeting, what is the lunch that you will arrange? What are the different things that you will arrange for lunch during that time clearly defines. If you are going to have breakfast, idli, vada, sambar, then you are in trouble. I'm just taking a very flimsy example, but that's a defining moment actually.
Okay, it's very well put, very actually interesting. I never thought about lunch being a representative metric for D&I. So thank you so much, Vinod. Let's move on to the next question. What are the benefits which, in your opinion, a woman leader, a woman director can make in the D&I in the workforce by bringing in some sort of innovation? Any such things which you have come across? Now I'll go in the reverse order. Again, Vinod first, Margaret, then Pawan.
Yeah, women are women directors. I'll come to that. I have seen women leaders. Let me go to the leaders first.
Yes.
I was very lucky to have worked with a very, very renowned women leader right in the beginning of my career. That was Hema Ravichandar. Hema Ravichandar was our HR head, and she was truly outstanding. She was a different power. And after that, we had a delivery leadership, a technical leader in Preeti Rao, who was my colleague, and she was very powerful and she was very clear in her decision making. That is on one side of corporate life. Then I worked very closely with Sudha Murthy madam, and she brought in a perspective of saying that how much money will you earn? You anyway have to give it away. So, a different perspective. When you look at the one common thing across some of the important leaders, women leaders, they are extremely good at multitasking. They're extremely good at multitasking, and that is one thing that the board member brings into the boardroom, because they don't normally think about only one thing. They'll be thinking about many other things at the same time. So that you don't need to be a master of everything when you're on the board. You definitely need to be a jack of all. You need to know a little bit of everything so that you're guiding the company in the right direction. And it is important. See, the woman will always bring in probably will take the things forward, a discussion forward from the heart, not from the mind. So it's a very clear approach, a maternal approach that will come into the board, and I think it is safer because of these two reasons, in terms of multitasking as well as in terms of bringing in a different overall perspective.
Okay, that's very nice. Margaret, will just take you in here because I specifically wanted to understand, because you're coming from a different country. How do you feel, like you're a CEO also, how do you feel what Vinod was saying, multitasking, which of late has been saying that it's better to have focused vision rather than multitask, and the emotional quotient, the empathy factor which a woman brings onto the board as against single point focus, and vis-a-vis what innovations women can bring into the diversity and inclusion quotient.
Okay, so first and foremost, thank you, Bharati. Thank you, Vinod, for your observations. I think that first and foremost, it's very important to have diversity on the board and to be included, because it actually leads to balanced and informed decision making. If you have more than one perspective, you're able to take a look from one angle, then it's very, very, very narrow. If you have more perspective, you have a very diversified perspective, and it's better for business. And indeed, if you're acting global, you need to have multiple perspectives. Back to the differences between men and women. Actually, I really like that, Vinod, what you were pointing out, because we are different. We have a different neurological, our brains are differently organized than men. And what do I mean with that? It's scientifically proven that the women brain is much more interacting the left and the right brain. If you want to call left and right, there's discussion whether that's still the place. While men tend to stay in one part of the brain, while women can interrelate very quickly. Now, so there's a neurological, physical reason behind some of the things I'm just referring to. I think back to innovation. it's important. If you have innovation, you need to have creativity. Creativity feeds innovation. Creativity is fed by diversity of opinions and insights. And I think it's important to, as a board, to be able to be willing to receive that diversity of insights. That leads to, you know, a better and profound business proposition. And if you're able, so you can have diversity, back to measuring diversity and inclusion. I think Pavan also relates to this. Diversity for me is numbers. Is measuring the numbers. How many women? Is there equal pay? Is there equality of opportunity? How are things with childcare? You know, do you provide childcare? Do you provide maternity leave, etc.? All very important things to get the demographics of women to grow in your organization. If you talk about inclusion, and I think that's really important in India with the cultural challenges you're actually experiencing with the low female participation, it means that, you know, you need to be able and to be willing to receive and to listen to the women's voice, to the input of women, the way they think, the way they talk. It's different than men. We just need to accept each other and live very balanced with each other. Last but not least, the feminine leadership threats are different than the masculine female threats. We've discussed this in great length the past year. Feminine leadership skills are empathy, caring, compassion. Male leadership skills or masculine leadership skills are command and control, etc., etc. I want to really point out to every lady and every person today present, you need both. You can't have only female, you can't have only male. It's a combination of both which you need. And so the situational awareness as a leader requires you to identify which skill you need at which moment to be most effective. Thank you. Back to you, Bharati.
Thank you. Yeah, Pavan, we'll just go into taking both what Vinod said and Margaret has just stated. But I want you to say, because you have headed a number of companies, in that aerospace company, which is helping with mental health. You know, so considering that, how do you feel women can act very participatively to bring about more diversity and inclusion and bring about innovations in the workforce?
See, I think most of it has already been covered. The important thing about innovation is to have multiple perspectives and an open platform where you can enable chaos, a creative chaos, and that requires multiple perspectives to come in. So I personally think that, in the companies that I have built, in my aerospace company and in my defense company, the key operational heads were both women. And they were the number 2 positions after me in the companies for over 15 years. Now, when I look at these leaders, right, whether it is a board or it's a formal board or an informal board, I saw 3 attributes consistently brought in by these female leaders. One was obviously empathy, which has been mentioned before. But I also think there is an innate sense of integrity. There is a genuinity in what is brought out. I believe that women have that ability to bring out that true authenticity into the system, because I don't know whether it's my experience or general, but I think that's a great strength and a great attribute that women bring in at leadership levels. I also think women are way more disciplined. And that discipline, especially at leadership level, right, we tend to kind of float around, and we tend to, because there's so much openness at leadership levels. And women bring in that sense of discipline, that sense of focus, I think, into the overall system. This has been my experience. And when you bring in these multiple attributes, and like Marguerite said, I think it's not just women, but it's the combination of different minds that come together to create innovative, thoughts. And that's been my experience. I obviously think that there is a lot more that women can do and should do to add to this overall thing. But I think what they bring in is very unique.
Yeah, I also agree with you, Pavan. It's a lot about being given the elbow room. They can do more, but whether they are being allowed to do more. And that brings me to the next question. In the current scenario, with the current elbow room which women have, I'm talking about in boardrooms context, okay? Because this is a director's conclave. In that context, in your one quick incident or one quick corporate journey of a woman which comes to mind, either in your own company or in your group of companies or something. And then same question to Margaret, same to Pawan also. Sorry, to Vinod also, because we have to quickly wrap up. I've just got 10 minutes, so I would really appreciate if you can come across with that.
Sure. Look, we are a family business. So I see more leaders in my family. I see as many leaders in the family context as in business. And we have board meetings both in the company and at home. So I'll tell you a couple of things. One is, I believe that, like Vinod mentioned, first of all, the home and in Indian context, especially the home and the office and the corporate is very interrelated. When we bring up kids, we don't bring up a boy and a girl in the same way. Boys are let to go free, girls are protected. So what happens is when they get into corporate world, especially in Indian context, as they come higher in the hierarchy and towards the board, women find it tough to take risks, to be comfortable in the unknown. And I've seen that, women need to work at it. And those who have been able to do that become successful at board level. And in my own experience, I can tell you, like I said, I've had multiple women in my board in different companies. And I wouldn't like to mention one, but what I've seen is these women, one common trait I've seen in them compared to most other women, their ability to take risk, their ability to be comfortable in the unknown. And this is an imperative for leadership. Our society doesn't enable that for women. They need to build it. They need to develop themselves to bring in that capability and attribute.
Very nice. You started off with creative chaos, and I love that word disruption. It's very much in my vocabulary for the last 5 years. So great. Women who are comfortable with disruption, they rise to the top. Okay, great. Margaret, your inputs, please.
Yeah, very good, Pavan. I think intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. And I think women are very good in that. I think also that the realization and the limitation of anything to be realized tomorrow is the limitation of our doubts today. So I think it's important for women to realize that they have very much the capabilities necessary for the leadership positions, but they should also take up the challenge to make it happen. And so you can't sit back, and think that things will happen. You need to step forward, be proactive, and start working. Back to the workplace and back to the combination of work and at home and in business, I think that very important to realize is for corporates also is back to the female leadership is that to be successful in the marketplace, you need to be successful in the workplace first. And this is something which has prominently become visible the past year. Your employees as a leader, are your biggest and most important asset. So for corporates, it's really important to make sure that all employees, women and other diversities included, are happy so that they can be successful. What that takes, and as I would like to conclude with this, that it takes, for corporates to have a very good strategy to make sure that inclusion is really part of the company's strategy. And this sounds for big companies easy because we have big resources. For smaller companies, you can do little things. It doesn't need to be big, bold strategy. It can be little things, thoughtful things for people to be included. And to just give one example of how that could work, because Pavan is an aerospace, I'd like to call out this aerospace example. NASA, you all know NASA, the space agency. They actually already in 2013 defined a strategy. They said, we want more women, we want more female astronauts. They started in the whole company. So not only appointing some people, no, the whole company, they put a strategy together and looked, how can we help women to succeed, to become astronauts and to become successful engineers and to become successful employees of NASA. They actually announced their class 22 a year ago. The class 22 is called the Turtles. And guess what? 50% of that class is female. 50% of that class of 13 astronauts, 6 or almost 50, is female. So it can happen, but you need to actually put your mind to it. And for all the women who want to be directors, who feel sometimes, the difficulty of being a director and the challenge of being taken, equally opportunities, etc. Ladies, be bold, be brave, be brilliant, and just do it. If you don't do it, nothing will happen.
All right. Thanks, Margaret. Happy and very proud to say Kalpana Chawla was in NASA. And of course, it was a very ended in a tragedy. But Kalpana Chawla, I think this was in the late 90s. She was one of the few female astronauts from India who had gone. Yeah, Binod, you're in a fantastic position in Infosys, talent management, everything what Pawan and Margaret have things. So we are looking to you to wrap it up with something very encouraging in the disruption force and for the women leaders at Infosys, and then of course across the software industry.
Yeah, sure. If you look at Infosys, we almost recruit about 40,000 people every year. 20,000 of them are more laterals and 20,000 freshers. Out of the 20,000 freshers, 50% of them will be women. You know, when I joined the workforce, there were very few percentage of women coming into engineering studies, because I'm taking a reference to IT industry, software industry. So mostly engineers coming out of engineering colleges, the percentage was very low. Then it steadily went up to almost 18-20%. Today, when we see the workforce entering the workforce, 50% of them are women. But then that 50% comes down to almost 34% in about 4 years. Various reasons. People get married and relocate to some other location, etc., etc. But we are glad that they are in the workforce. They are there in the IT industry. It may not with Infosys. They're probably working for some other company, which is perfectly fine. So the fact that this drops down to 34% is a very serious issue, because they're dropping down from 50% to 34% because of some social reasons, and that is what needs to be protected. That is what needs some action. That is what needs some tweaking to be done to make sure that they get back. The other point is, you know, women, especially at the board level or at senior leadership level, they need to compete purely based on merit. Now, that is like putting their foot firmly on the ground. They should never allow any other factor to come in the way, but only merit. Because the moment they compete only based on merit, they will definitely be successful. And at the end of success, they will definitely have leadership positions coming their way, because only merit will count. And then women are very good at this. They take one step at a time. They do not want to plan too much into the future. They take one step at a time, and that is what will hold them in very good stride. Now, look at it the opposite side. Now, look at it from, let me take my example. I have had 5 women controlling my life. Okay, my mother, my sister, my wife, my daughter, and my daughter-in-law. And look at, I have to modulate differently to different people. It's a very important modulation. Likewise, when I'm at a workplace, I also need to modulate accordingly. So what I learn at home is what I have to practice in office. And then I also need to know, suppose somebody walks in and says, I need maternity leave, or I need additional leave for maternity, or whatever reason, I should look at that person like my daughter or daughter-in-law. Okay, if I don't do that, then I will take a wrong decision. So it is very important for you to look at the opposite side also, because only two hands will make a clap, right? So it is very important to balance some of this. And of course, women do understand and take this step. And last but not least, I want women to not think about their leadership or their board positions or whatever they need to do only on the 8th of March. They need to think of it on a sustained basis outside of Women's Day, because everybody talks about this on 8th of March, and after that everybody forgets about it.
Exactly. Totally. Very well put.
Thank you.
So happy to have had such fantastic inputs from you, Vinod and Pawan. I mean, absolutely fantastic that you people participated. I want to mention, especially because of the time difference, special thanks to Margaret to join us from Netherlands, and my friend and is Gert Workmillion, who was unable to join, and especially referred Margaret, who on very short notice accepted our invitation. I think that this panel has given us some wonderful insights. So appreciative of all that all the three of you all have said, Pawan, Margaret, and of course Vinod. Thank you so much. It has been a wonderful interaction. Thanks a lot.